Hello and welcome to Homestead Healing. My name is Laura Ann. I'm your heart and healing mentor, and today we are live, except that it's not. Usually I do live recordings every Wednesday at 12:30 Central Standard Time. I had technical difficulties on Facebook today, so I'm recording it after the fact. But each Wednesday around lunchtime, I come on to talk with you in a little more depth about different things that will be a help for you on your healing journey. And it's my passion and my purpose to empower empaths to overcome emotional overwhelm so that they can thrive in the life of their dreams. If that sounds like you can always reach out to me, email me, send me a direct message on Instagram at Homestead Healing. You can also go to my website and see the different ways to work with me, homesteadhealingatx.com. And today we are going to talk about inner child work and archetypes. So inner child work, what is it? It's working with your inner child, of course. And it's just about getting to know your inner child, what she's been through, what her needs are, and how she needs to heal. And that can feel a little overwhelming and daunting in and of itself. Maybe you don't remember a lot about your childhood. Maybe you remember, all these different things, but you don't really know what it means or where to start or how is that even affecting you as an adult. And that's where archetypes can be very helpful. And, archetypes, they've really been around since Plato, but they were expounded upon in great detail by Carl Jung in Jungian psychology. I think I'm saying that right. And he really, got really fine-tuned in understanding what archetypes are within the collective consciousness, these kind of stories and patterns that we have in common across cultures and across psyches. And he sort of coined the term collective consciousness as well and did a lot of work around that too. Carolyn Myss built on a lot of the work by Carl Jung, and that is something that I've been really interested in lately, in working with archetypes to get a better understanding of what your sacred contract is. If you're not aware of what sacred contracts are, that's a whole nother video subject, but in a nutshell, it's kind of your purpose, why you're here on earth, living the life you're living in the body you're in, and the family you were born into, and the relationships that you've had through your life. What is the purpose? What is your mission here in the classroom of planet Earth? So that's sort of a broader spectrum reason to get into archetypes and to do inner child work. But inner child work and working with the child archetype can have very powerful results because it is that first state of consciousness that you're born into. And if we're looking at it from a developmental perspective, it's really where, it's those formative years of your mental and emotional self. From birth till around the age of 7 or 8, that's when your brain is a little sponge and you're just like, taking it all in and internalizing it and integrating it into yourself. All of those experiences that you have as a child. And so we have 4 archetypes that are primary and shared by everyone, no matter who you are. And those 4 archetypes are neutral in and of themselves. It's a really important point to remember. We all have these 4 primary archetypes. There's like 80 other archetypes out there. These 4 are ones that we all have in common. They're all neutral, and that's because they have both a positive and a shadow aspect, a empowering positive and a negative shadow aspect within themselves. So even if it doesn't sound like it could be a positive, each archetype has really positive attributes. So the 4 primary ones are the prostitute, the victim, the saboteur, and the child, which is what we're getting into today. And in the child archetype, there are actually 6 subcategories of orphan child, wounded child, nature child, divine child, the mystic, magical innocent child, and the eternal boy girl child. And so those are all aspects of the child archetype that I think each of us has to some degree, but you'll tend to identify more with one or two of those than the rest of them. And that's a really good roadmap for you on the kinds of questions you want to ask, the kinds of healing that you need to do for your inner child, for that child archetype. And since there's so many of them today, I wanted to just focus on the two most relatable that I tend to see people really relating to more. And that is the orphan child and the wounded child. Now, the orphan child, this archetype, people who resonate with it who feel that from birth they haven't been accepted as a part of their family. And that includes, the less tangible aspects and elements of family like morality, psyche, maybe spiritual beliefs. So if you have felt really abandoned or rejected by your family in any kind of way, physical, mental, emotional, spiritually, you may really relate to and resonate with the orphan child archetype. And there's some, empowering aspects of that. One is you've developed this great sense of independence. Orphan child archetypes have great independence, great inner strength, great resiliency, and that can really serve you well on the path of life when there's balance. When there's more of the shadow aspect taking over and it's out of whack, that will start to show, that archetype will start to show patterns of being really isolated and not being able to have healthy relationships with others because of fear of abandonment. That fear of abandonment and rejection comes up very strongly. And then the fear of that really, and the lack of stability will inhibit your ability to grow and really thrive in adulthood, and in adult relationships. So that would be something to look out for if you relate to the orphan child archetype within your own life. And then that just gives you clues on what it is you need to heal with your inner child from your own personal experience, from your own personal history. The wounded child is another very commonly relatable archetype. And for me, I feel like most people that I coach, most of the people that I have done hands-on healing with relate to the wounded child archetype. And that is in part because I relate to the wounded child. And so I tend to be a magnet for other wounded children. Now, as a wounded child archetype, you have memories of abuse, neglect, and varying levels of trauma from your early childhood experiences. And, the empowering side of this archetype is that it makes you hella compassionate, right? I mean, if you're a healer, chances are you have a wounded child archetype. That is very common. It makes you very compassionate, very rooted in forgiveness, much more likely to dedicate yourself to a life of serving others and to helping other wounded children heal. There's this kind of blasting open of the doors of forgiveness for you if you have the wounded child archetype, and that's an empowering aspect that exists there, is that ability to forgive. The shadow aspects of the wounded child show up as this kind of this leaning towards self-pity, maybe a tendency to lay blame at others' feet for your own shortcomings. And with a wounded child, that will frequently happen with your primary caregivers or with your parents. Like, oh, I'm like this because my parents were such assholes, or, oh, I'm like this because, so-and-so did this and this. And rather than taking responsibility for yourself and finding forgiveness for yourself and the people who maybe caused suffering for you as a child, instead it becomes this kind of blame game, and you get lost in that, and forgiveness can't take root, and then you're incapable of fully healing and thriving as an adult. So if you relate to that, that would give you some clues of how you want to nurture and heal your inner child. The other archetypes also all have the subcategories of the children archetype, the child archetype, as well as all of the other primary and secondary archetypes have these empowering and shadow aspects. And I think it's really important to really look at the shadows because we're not encouraged to do that a lot. It's like, you know, just put a smile on, fake it till you make it, you know, focus on the positive. All those things have their place and can be great. But if you never look at the shadows, then the deeper healing won't happen. And so that's another very useful tool within the system of archetypes to help you to heal and to help you to recognize how these different patterns are showing up in your life, how you can use these archetypes to serve you, to empower you, and to help you heal and release and let go old limiting beliefs and shadow aspects of self. So, in a nutshell, that's a little bit more about inner child work and archetypes in general. If you feel drawn to working with your inner child, I do have a free visualization, meditation, audio training on inner child work on my website, homesteadhealingatx.com. Please check it out. You can just go on there, homesteadhealingatx.com, to get your free download. And I hope that this has been insightful for you on your own healing journey. I think for empaths, for sensitive folks, and pretty much everyone, inner child work is a must for your healing journey. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I see you, I love you, and I'm sending you out to the rest of this week with so much love and light. Namaste.